I now take this sediment for a meeting of the Community and Enterprise Resources Committee held on the 17th of March 2026. Councillors John Anderson and Ralph Barkett are present.
Apologies from Walter.
Apologies from Councillor Walter Brogan. Following members are present: Councillors Robert Brown, Andy Carmichael, Jerry Convery. Councillor Andrea Cowan is not present. Councillors Margaret Cowie, Maureen Devlin and Colin Dewar are present. With apologies from Councillor Joe Fagan, Councillor Gladys Ferguson Miller and Councillor Ross Gowland are present. Councillor Graham Horn is not present. Councillors Cal Johnston Dempsey and Susan Kerr are present. Councillor Martin Lennon is not present. The following members are all present: Councillors Richard Lockhart, Hugh MacDonald, Ian McAllen, Kenny McCready, David McLachlan, Carol Nugent, Kirsten Robb. We have apologies from Councillor Helen Toner, and Councillor David Shearer is attending as a substitute, and Councillor David Watson is also present. Thank you, and I'll pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and I've got to welcome Stuart as the new clerk to the committee as well, after a bit of reorganisation of staff members. I hope he'll enjoy his time with us, but he's starting with a very long meeting today, so could I perhaps just ask people to keep their questions as short as they can to enable us to get through it as quickly as possible. Item 1, declaration of interest. Any declarations of interest? Sorry, David, did you say? No, okay. No declarations of interest. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 14. Can I move that as a true record?
I'll second it.
Any queries on that? That matter's noted. Sorry?
Councillor Anderson.
Oh, Councillor Anderson, sorry, yes, you're right. Yeah. John?
Conferral.
Sorry, can you start again on that? That's it.
I'm just saying it's not about the minutes, it's just that Andrea Cowan is having problems getting into Conferral.
So, Councillor Anderson, we've been advised that there's apologies for Councillor Cowan.
Yes. I think we'll just have to continue, John. If there's anything else you can... Yeah. You can do on that.
We'll advise IT.
Yes. Okay, IT will be advised, but I think we probably just need to carry on with the meeting in the circumstances. Thanks. Sorry, minutes of the previous meeting, that's been agreed. Item 3, monitoring items, that's the revenue budget monitoring 25-26, pages 15 to 26. Can I invite Louise Harvey to speak to that report? Hi, Louise.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. So this is the 4th report on the Community Enterprise Committee on the 25-26 revenue budget position, which includes our actuals at period 11 of our financial year, which covers the 1st of April through to the 23rd of January, and it also updates on the detailed probable outturn exercise and forecast for the resource for the year to the 31st of March 26. So the main financial implications of the report are included at paragraph 5.1 on page 15. And again, following the Council's probable outturn exercise, the forecast for the resource is an underspend at the 31st of March of £348,000. And this is after the approved transfers to reserves of £1.118 million. Transfers were approved as part of the Council's overall probable outturn exercise at the Executive Committee on the 4th of February, and these are outlined in appendices C, D, F and G at the bottom, and they cover commitments for expenditure within facilities, waste and grounds, planning and regulatory services, enterprise and sustainable development, and also our fleet services. Variance explanations are outlined in Appendix C to G for the report for each service area. And as this reflects the detailed outturn, there are a number of variances to report today. In terms of the main underspends and employee costs, these are supporting costs in terms of overspends in our property costs for cleaning, janitorial, Hamilton Towers and depots. overspends in our supplies budgets across our services for materials, bins, equipment, repairs, PPE, IT costs and roads and material costs in our construction unit, which is recovered via income. Overspends in transport, mainly around vehicle maintenance and hires, and also fuel costs, which again are recovered via income within fleet. We've got overspends in our medicals, our general admin, including printing and stationery, training and subscriptions. Overspends in our payments to other bodies in relation to our West of Scotland weather services, and again these are recovered via income and commitments within employability. We've also got overspends in our payment to contractor costs for crematorium, upkeep, dog kennelling, property clearances, winter maintenance, reactive maintenance, structures and lighting. And within our income, we've got projected under-recovery in bereavement income, school meals income, care of gardens, parking income and income from EV charging. However, we do have an over-recovery in relation to our planning building standards income, garden waste services, additional service requests, roads, construction unit income due to increased capital and rechargeable works. So quite a detailed list to take members through today, but it's really because we're reflecting the detailed outturn for the resource. We're also updating at section 5 on the 25-26 investments across the service, and this position reflects those within the revenue budget, and there is no change to what we reported at the last committee, with investments of 866 million across Rutherglen 900, extensions to the Frontline First programme and fighting fly tipping. They're also updating on Community Enterprises revenue budget spend for the Local Action Fund projects, and 117,000 has been allocated within our budget position as outlined in Table 6.2. Services have been allocated the new funding as approved at the Executive Committee, and they're spending these additional resources in line with elected members' proposals. Total investments therefore for 25-26 is 982,000, and these are progressed for spend across the year. We do have our regular budget environments, and these are proposed as set out at the bottom of Appendix C through to G, and these reflect movements in the Community Enterprise budget since we last reported to committee from the 3rd of February through to the 23rd of January, and cover the main areas. Budget realignments to reflect how we deliver our services, transfers to and from corporate items, transfers between our resources, general revenue grant redeterminations, transfers from reserves in relation to expenditure commitments, and also temporary budget we've created for external grant. So if I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the probable outturn forecast to the 31st of March for the resource of an underspend of 348,000 after the approved transfers to reserves be noted, and also that the proposed budget environments are approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Louise. I think there's a lot of familiar stuff in here, isn't there? I should probably, for transparency, although we're not making a decision about that, just declare my chairmanship of Rutherglen 900, which is mentioned there. We're not making a decision about that as such. Any questions on that report? Colin Dewar. Colin.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick one on page 24, Appendix F. It's just to ask where it's referencing Hamilton Towers. Does this overspend relate to vacated or long-term empty units?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the tail end of the question? I couldn't hear you. Hamilton Towers for... Is
it the overspend, does it relate to vacated or long-term empty units?
It's actually to do with the dilapidation costs as we extract ourselves from Hamilton Towers. So it's the council finishing up on the lease there, and we had some final dilapidation costs to exit the buildings.
Okay, thank you. No other questions. Can I therefore move the report? Thank you very much. That report's approved. Item 4 is the Capital Budget Monitoring Statement, 25-26, pages 27 to 32. Graham Booth to speak to this report in this instance. Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our standard capital budget monitoring report, the fourth for this financial year 25-26, and this reflects the budget and spend position to the 23rd of January, which is our accounting period 11. Section 5, the financial implications, and Section 5.1, we're noting the resources total capital programme for the year is 55.160 million, and that remains unchanged since we last reported to committee. At section 5.2, we're noting some additional funding from the Walk Wheel Cycle Trust, which was formerly Sustrans. They've confirmed that the council will receive just over 900,000 for various projects this financial year, and works are underway to progress these projects and maximise spend in 25-26. However, given the timing of the award, the budget will be added into next year's programme, with any spend achieved in 25-26 managed from the overall funding available. Appendix A is showing a forecast spend for the year of 53.410 million, and that's an anticipated net underspend of 1.750 million against the budget. And that's, as we reported last time, just around in relation to two projects, East Kilbride Town Centre, 800,000 where the demolition costs were lower than anticipated, and also in relation to the Hamilton Junctions project, 950,000 as works planned for Wellhall Road have been reprogrammed to begin in spring 26. And for information, we're noting actual expenditure incurred to the 23rd of January of just under 31 million. At section 6, in terms of this is new to the report for this time, is just providing an update on the Leisure and Culture Transformation Fund programme, which is obviously one of the biggest projects within the overall programme. And the Transformation Fund has a total budget of 13 million and forecast spend of 10 million expected in 2025-26. Just noting there in terms of physical progress through the years going well, and some of the mentions of projects complete to date include the fitness studio modernisation and gym upgrades across the area, in John Wright Sports Centre, Carl Luke Leisure Centre, Hamilton Water Palace and Lanark Lifestyles, as well as library reprovisions at Hill House and Ernock, Green Hills, Blantyre and Forth. And work is continuing across a number of other projects, including our conservatory roof at Calder Glen, the upgrade to changing and showers at Blantyre Leisure Centre, and the upgrade works at Lanark Memorial Hall and the toilets at Châtellerault Country Park. So as I say, we're continuing to monitor the Leisure and Culture Fund overall, but spend in line with the 10 million anticipated for this year. And at section 7, we're also detailing, again, just the funding that's been allocated to the resource as part of the 25-26 investment funding. And there's a table just at 7.1, just at the top of page 29, which outlines that, showing the budget of 6.8 million profiled this year and forecasting spend across the various projects with 4.2 million incurred as at the 23rd of January. And noting there just we have a further 22 million of the investment funding because that was allocated across 3 years, and that's profiled roughly 11 million over 26-27 and then again in 27-28. So I would then refer committee back to the recommendation in section 2 of the report that the Community and Enterprise Resources Capital Programme of 55.160 million and the forecast spend of 53.410 million be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. It's very gratifying, I think, to see some of the spend under the Transformation Fund going forward there. Not least, I'm not an aficionado of gyms, particularly myself, I have to confess, but nevertheless, the improvements in the gym and fitness stuff, I think, is well worth commenting about. Any questions on that report? No questions. Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
That report's approved. Moving on to item 5, the Workforce Monitoring Report, 1st October to 31st December 25, pages 33 to 40. And Elaine Maxwell is going to speak to this report. Elaine.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. As you said, this is the Workforce Monitoring Report covering the period October to December of last year and outlines the employment information for the resource for that period. As always, we reference section 4 within the report, which details the absence information, and you'll see that at December the resources absence level was sitting at 8.4%, and that was an increase of 0.7 from the previous month, and then it was a 1% increase compared to December of last year. And you'll also see that the December figure for 2025 was 0.9% higher than the council-wide average. So as we always do, looking at the projected annual average for 25-26, the resource is sitting at a projection of 7.1% compared to the council-wide average of 6.1%. Whilst I understand that the absence levels at December will be of a concern to the members within committee, just to confirm that the managers do continue to follow the procedures as laid out in our maximising attendance policy and work closely with personnel. In addition, we are providing bespoke training and complex case references with managers to make sure that we are supporting our employees in the correct way. I think as well, just to provide a bit of context around the December figures, what we can see was that there were 53 long-term absence cases were actually closed off in December. However, we then had a further 49 short-term absences that then became long-term during that period. So whilst there's lots of activity happening, obviously there are still absences that will continue. Along with that, what we did see was an increase in the number of employees that recorded a respiratory absence. So we had 86 recorded absences for flu during December, and that meant we lost 590 working days just in December for flu. And that, when we look at December last year, where we had 61 cases but only 284 days lost. Again, you will all know in terms of the criteria, in terms of the flu vaccination, as a council we do send out reminders to all our employees around accessing the flu vaccination, and as a council we refund those employees that are not eligible to access it through the NHS. So we have seen a bigger uptake this year, but obviously it just depends on when employees access that in terms of whether that's got an impact on our absence levels. But we do continue to do those reminders as well as all of our wellbeing reminders that we're doing. I think another piece of good work that we want to mention is that we do a session with our facilities employees, and that's just because that they're harder to reach in terms of just the nature of their work. Facilities management work closely with the wellbeing team, and we actually did a bespoke wellbeing day in February for this group of employees, and that made sure that we were accessing supports, training, and some external providers that we had on the day. So we had the likes of Money Matters, Prostate Cancer, we had Health and Chest Scotland, so there was a number of, quite a number of stalls there, which was very well received. Those employees that participated on that particular day were cooks in charge and janitors, and they were welcomed by the facilities management team and a personal advisor who did a wellbeing talk and provided them information about the Employees Assistance Programme and a Champion Health talk, and they were then obviously allowed to go around the stands. They were also invited to attend a couple of training sessions that was available to them. That included neurodiversity awareness and stress awareness and building resilience. So it really just to give you an idea of the work that is ongoing within personnel team, and obviously the huge pieces of work that is going on within the resource. We are repeating that session. Facilities are repeating that with cleaning supervisors and with our school crossing patrollers in August, and we are looking at how we can tap into some of our other depots and how do we reach out across the council as well. So it's not just around there, but it's about spreading that good work that we're doing. Moving on then, in terms of section 2 within the report, you'll see the information found on occupational health is in appendix 2, and that there were 351 occupational health referrals made during the period, and that was an increase of 50, which you would expect in terms of the absence levels. You'll see within the appendix that increases around the occupational health, the medical referrals and physio referrals. Section 4.3 then outlines the accidents and incidents, and you'll see that there were 42 recorded within the resource for this period. Section 4.4 then goes on to the employee relations activity, and you'll see that there were 27 disciplinary hearings held, 1 internal resource appeal heard, and 2 grievance hearings with 3 dignity at work complaints raised. And those are ongoing and dealt with in line with, again, council policies and procedures. Section 4.5 then goes on to outline the analysis of leavers, and again that's found in Appendix 2A, and you'll see that there were 26 leavers during the period that were eligible for an exit interview, and 3 exit interviews were conducted. And again, you'll know that we send out the access to the link because employees can do that online. So we're trying to encourage employees, but again, it is voluntary, but we do try to get as many exit interviews conducted where we can. Section 5, which is found on Appendix 3, just details the staffing watch information which is gathered at the time of the report being written, and that is around the information based at December 25 in comparison to September, and that shows there was an increase of 5 employees during that period. And with that, I would refer committee back to Section 2 within the report and ask you to approve the recommendation to note the employment information for the period October to December. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Elaine. Could I welcome what you've said about the flu vaccine, because I think that's one of the issues we can do something about to some degree. Can you give us a kind of flavour of just what percentage of employees actually take up the offer? Do we know that?
That's quite difficult to actually put a percentage on because of a number of employees that can actually access through at the NHS, so we won't know that
don't know that,
information. What we can see is only how many of our employees have asked for a refund through the expenses profile. So the numbers are fairly low and we need to do a bit more, but it's just about making sure that people know all of the avenues they can get in terms of accessing that. So it's quite a difficult one to put a percentage on because we won't know all of that information.
I think the point is, I think there's a huge free bonus here, isn't there, if we can improve the uptake and then reduce the number of people who are off with flu of various kinds and things of that kind. Any other questions on this matter? No questions. Can I therefore move the report? Thank you very much. That report's approved. Moving on to item 6, items for decision. Council Budget 2026-27, Infrastructure and Service Area Investment. And that's pages 41 to 48, and Colin Park's going to speak to that report. Colin.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. The purpose of this report is to outline both the recurring and one-off investment that's been agreed for the year ahead, and to highlight how these proposals will strengthen frontline services, enhance our local environment and support our communities and businesses. Section 3 sets out the background and it notes the budget approved on the 26th of February reflects substantial support for the wide range of services that are delivered within community and enterprise, and this investment obviously strengthens essential local services, supports economic activity and delivers long-term improvements to infrastructure, public spaces and community facilities. Section 4 first touches upon the recurring investment, the 1.7 million for enhanced grounds maintenance. That will see us significantly increase our capacity to maintain green spaces, town centres and high footfall areas. Additional frontline staff, strengthened arboricultural teams and new apprenticeships will also improve service responsiveness, appearance of neighbourhoods and biodiversity. The second hedge cut, 144,000. This reinstated hedge cut will improve visibility, road and footway safety and keep paths more accessible during peak growing seasons. 100,000 to 500,000, increasing the business grants from 100,000 to 500,000 will help more local businesses modernise, invest in new equipment and technology and support job and growth creation. Free swims for under 16 and other recurring investment area, 250,000. Working with South Lanarkshire Leisure, this initiative removes cost barriers for families and encourages physical activity and lifelong healthy habits. Moving on to the one-off investment areas under Environment and Infrastructure, 12 million. This sits a lot within my own service. This fund will see improvements to street lighting, crossings, pedestrian crossings, bridges, drainage, open spaces and other key assets. And projects will be prioritised through asset management plans and delivered over the next 3 years. The local business growth, 3.5 million. This includes a new retrofit grant programme for industrial properties, support for improved commercial space investment in the council's business centres, and these measures will strengthen the business case, create jobs and support net zero ambitions. 7.3 million, one-off investment in country parks will progress major master plan elements for Chartler Row and Calder Glen, and this includes a major expansion to the play park at Chartler Row and improved access, lighting and active travel routes in and around Calder Glen. 4 million has been identified as one-off investment for outdoor and recreational enhancements. This will allow acceleration of upgrades of muggers, improve former tennis courts and pitches, upgrade paths and lighting, and support community groups to bring unused spaces back into productive use. A cultural strategy investment of 800,000 will see one-off investment strengthening that identity and support events and activities, and this will delivered in partnership with South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture. A whole range of benefits are set out in section 5, just to kind of highlight a key few that I've already said. Infrastructure, safer, improved networks, better lighting, enhanced drainage and more attractive public spaces under the infrastructure banner. Outdoor and recreational facilities, better muggers, paths and park infrastructure that support wellbeing and community participation. Under economy and culture, strengthen business support, modernise commercial space and investment in arts and heritage and place-based culture. And obviously in terms of frontline services, ongoing improvements to ground maintenance, hedge cutting and support for local events and activities. These should go some long way to see a cleaner, safer, inclusive and stronger community across South Lanarkshire. In terms of employee implications, clearly this will require strengthening capacity across a whole range of areas, to do planning, programming, management and frontline operations. Should also note as well, given from a financial side, the kind of larger projects such as investment, environment, outdoor improvements will be phased over several years. In terms of climate, sustainability, environmental impact, it obviously contributes positively to these goals. Upgrades to infrastructure will improve climate resilience, while enhanced outdoor and recreational spaces promote active travel and low carbon lifestyles. Business support also contributes to investment in energy efficiency and lower carbon technologies. Other implications just worthwhile highlighting here: some of the major projects and major investment areas will require planning permission, environmental assessments and procurement processes which may influence overall timelines. Consultation will be taken forward in line with the project plans, including public engagement for the development of a cultural strategy. So just turning back to the recommendations, page 1. Members have been asked to note the contents of the report and approve the proposed distribution of the £4 million allocated for outdoor investment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Colin. I mean, this is obviously familiar territory again from the budget, but I think it's nevertheless worth stressing that we should be seeing quite significant visible improvements across a whole range of things within the realm of communities enterprise that will benefit the people of South Lanarkshire as a result of this cross-party spending, dare I say, in this context. Any questions on the report? Kirsten Robb.
Thank you. Yep, a huge amount to welcome here. Lots of things that our communities want to see. Welcome lots of different aspects of it. I did want to pick up on one aspect where I felt there wasn't quite enough information to be able to feel entirely comfortable with it. On page 42, it talks about the grounds maintenance and hedge cutting. I just felt a bit more information. Coming back to the nature emergency motion, which we all signed up to, the two key aspects of that are all council initiatives are to align with the Scottish Biodiversity Strategy, and we must ensure the workforce understands the importance of biodiversity. This motion a few years ago, and our commitment in the budget amendment, was to have green spaces that work for people and nature, and that necessitates some more information, as was promised, about how the expanded service, including hedgerow management, aligns with the biodiversity strategy and ensures the workforce understands the importance of biodiversity and their obligations under the law. For example, protection of bird nesting areas and also the food sources that hedgerows provide as well. So didn't feel entirely comfortable with the information that was provided, or there wasn't actually any information provided about how these things will enhance biodiversity, and I would like to find out a bit more about that just now before endorsing the proposals. Thank you.
Kevin, you want to say something on that?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Robb, for your question. No, your point's well made. So, hedge cutting is a fairly well-established practice within the resource. So, although we've reduced it to one cut 3 years ago, this is just proposing another cut during the growing season. So, as I said, it's a fairly well-established practice. Our operatives know their duties around the nesting season. Because obviously the two cuts will take place during the nesting season, so they will be expected to check every hedgerow before it's cut, and if there is a bird's nest visible within the hedge, then they will be asked to move on. They won't cut that hedge while there is a bird nesting in it. In terms of your comment around biodiversity, so as you know, we have biodiversity training available to all our employees, so I'm quite happy to take that back and make sure that our employees have an opportunity to undertake that training to give you a bit more comfort about our responsibilities as a council and as a service.
You want to come back?
Thanks very much for that. Just to be really clear on the law is about an active nest, and that includes nest building behaviour. So it's just to make sure that everybody knows very clearly what the law is. You know, if a bird's flying about with twigs and about to build a nest, that also includes. So it's just to be really sensitive. We have our own biodiversity strategy with reports due on that, and in terms of how has the need for food sources for birds, including hedgerows, been taken account in For example, the September cut will actually remove a lot of the berries that birds require during the season. I'm all up for it. Obviously, we have to balance this with the need for access, but I'd just like to understand how this proposal was informed by an awareness of the biodiversity needs that we need to also balance.
Kevin?
Thanks, Councillor Rob. I suppose just to be clear, it's a proposal that we've been asked to consider and implement again. So if I can give any assurance, it's a long-standing operational activity for the service and the operatives are really clear on their obligations around it. I'm happy to provide further information after committee or aside to the committee in terms of a briefing to yourself if you're looking for further reassurance.
I think there'll also be monitoring opportunities during the year on this, this and other matters, as it were, so which will hopefully be helpful too. Andy Carmichael.
Sorry, he's pressed his button again.
That's it. Oh,
Yes, we press it again.
we keep losing him. Oh, there he is. Right, Andy.
Sorry about that, Robert. Thanks very much. Can I refer and go back to page 42 as well? Item 4.7, the free swims for under-16s, which is a very welcome initiative, quite frankly. And I was glad that was put through. However, the main reason for this being it removes financial barriers to participate and encourage younger children and young people to engage in regular physical activity. I have, for example, a swimming club in my ward, right, whose members predominantly consist of young people under 16 years of age, right? I have sent an email to South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture regarding the charges that they have to pay for the use of the swimming pool. To date, I have had no response. I wonder if Kevin can highlight, is there any further news on this, please?
Kevin?
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Carmichael. Listen, we'll be happy to pick that up with the Chief Executive of South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture. I wouldn't have an answer for that at this point, Councillor Carmichael. But we'll come back to you.
Okay, I saw Ralph Barker's name on this. Are you still interested, Ralph? Your name's dropped off. Okay.
Right, thanks, Chair. Thanks for that report, Colin. And thanks to Councillor Robb's question about nesting sites. I have reported a worrying issue where a nesting site has been excuse me, slightly damaged, but I do have to say it's on a trunk road within South Lanarkshire, not our issue. But we should be very, very careful of both the legal and the environmental issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colin Dewar. Colin.
Thanks, Chair. As Robert said, there's a lot of proposals in here. It was agreed the cross-party working group and through the budget, specifically page 44, 4.18 on the Mugger refurbishments. There's 4 initial locations noted. I'm just looking to ask if there's a rough estimate of cost per Mugger and how many we can maybe expect to be covered by this £1 million investment.
Who's covering that? Alison.
Thank you, Councillor Dewar. Thank you for your question. Yes, we've been actively working on that over the last few days. So there are 4 cited on here. And what we are proposing to do is essentially extend the delivery of Mugger upgrades down the long list of schools that we have. So we think we will be able to extend it beyond the 4 cited, but we're just working through the details of that. The average cost is about someplace between 50 and 100k, dependent on the extent of works. That said, sometimes costs can go into six-figure sums. On the basis that it's at the lower end, we'll be able to do many more than listed on this this report. But again, we're happy to update councillors as we work through that list.
Okay, thank you very much. Kenny McCreary. Kenny.
Chair, just back to Councillor Robb's point on the nesting season. Hannah and I had a lot of discussion about this on the cross-party working group. Could I maybe ask Kevin, is it possible they can avoid the key nesting season when they're cutting the hedges? So, for example, I guess from now until the end of September, is it not possible that can be done? And also, where a hedge doesn't look to be out of control, can they perhaps just not cut it at all? Thanks.
Kevin?
Thanks, Councillor McCleary. I think what I'll do at this point is I'll bring in an actual horticulturalist to answer that question. You'll maybe get more sense out of him. So if I can ask Colin Reid, if we can bring him in.
So, is that me? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Just to start off, the second hedge cut coming back in again isn't something new. We've been doing 2 hedge cuts, previously 3 hedge cuts for many, many years, and they're all done during the growing season. We do it from March to September because that's when hedges grow. So it's not possible to leave hedges out with that, hence the reason why it's done during the growing season. The second hedge cut, the first hedge cut will come in, or the reinstatement of a second hedge cut. So the first cut will be done June, July. And I take on board the point about the legal aspects of it. All councils across the country are legally entitled to prune hedges during bird nesting season, providing they take care and they follow the guidelines that Kevin had outlined. We need to do that to keep pathways clear, to ensure visibility displays are kept clear, and basically to keep people safe. But as I say, the first hedge cut will be June, July. The nesting season legally, I think, is March till the end of August. So that first hedge cut will be June, July. But then the majority of birds should be in the stages of being out the hedges. Can't I say the law about the hedges, but the guys are going to be under strict instruction. Where it's noticeable there's a hedge, then they need to cease well before the nest, leave it and then come back to it. And then the second hedge cut will be done September to October, which is out with the bird nesting season. So we are taking steps to try and mitigate as much as possible any risk to nesting birds and avoid that issue. But as I say, it's a thing we need to do during the growing season, and that's why we're bringing it back in this way.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Can I therefore move that report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That report's approved. Moving on to item 7, Community Benefit Funds, Renewable Energy Fund grant applications, page 49 to 56. Alison Brown's going to speak to that.
Thank you. This is a regular report to committee, and this month there are 5 projects that we're seeking an award from the Renewable Energy Fund. The first is from Carnwath Golf Club, who are seeking an award of nearly £54,000 to construct a purpose-built swing room, which will allow year-round coaching and practicing, which will also be open to community groups. Community Volunteer Enable You are seeking a grant award of £148,607 to support disadvantaged young people and their wider families in the rural area. This is a 3-year programme of activity to ensure the project is sustainable and impactful. The third recommendation is for Crawford John Heritage Venture Trust. An award of just over £57,000 will allow the Trust to complete the renovation and restoration of the historic organ pipe within the museum. Douglasdale Real Group are seeking a grant award of nearly £190,000 to employ a community woodland development officer for a 3-year period and appoint architects to develop proposals as part of the Douglas Valley Outdoor Recreation and Adventure Tourism project. These proposals will also support external funding bids. There is a separate paper on today's agenda in relation to the Douglas Valley project. And finally, Lanark Community Development Trust are seeking an award of £30,000 to employ an education gardener to organise events, manage volunteers and maintain Castlebank Park for a period up to March 2027. And with that, I take you back to the recommendation and ask that committee approves the grant as set out in section 2.1.
Thank you very much. To say the least, the Renewable Energy Fund does a lot of good stuff across the rural area. No questions. Can I therefore move the report?
Second it.
That's the report's approved. Moving on to item 8, the Local Transport Strategy 2026 to 2036, pages 57 to 76, and Colin Park inevitably is going to speak to that one, I think.
Thanks again, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek approval to approve the local transport strategy for the period 2026 to 2036. The strategy sets out how we intend to shape South Lanarkshire's transport network over the next decade, and it aims to ensure transport supports economic growth, inclusion, active travel and our transition to net zero. Section 3 goes into a wee bit more detail about why the strategy is needed. The background in Section 3 goes into why the strategy is needed. Our last strategy ended in 2023, and since then we've seen major changes in travel behaviour, policy requirements, climate priorities and community expectations. This strategy has been developed using data, consultation feedback and alignment with the national, regional policy frameworks across Scotland. Section 4 sets out a clear and ambitious vision, and it's set out at paragraph 4.2. Kind of key points from that is we're looking to have a transport network that is accessible, affordable, low carbon, resilient, safe and well connected, supporting both urban and rural communities. It emphasises integration between modes, better mobility for all, and transport as a driver of well-being. Section 5 sets out 6 objectives to guide the strategy. These include improving access to services, education and employment, supporting inclusive and sustainable economic growth, ensuring our networks is resilient and well maintained, improving road safety, decarbonising transport, encouraging modal shift and supporting healthier lifestyles through active travel. Each objective set out in the strategy is supported by measurable indicators such as road condition, emissions, public transport access, uptake of cycling and rail patronage as well. The strategy is split into various themes and actions, and they're set out in section 6. 9 theme chapters including maintenance and asset management, road safety, economic employment access, expanding active travel networks, emissions and air quality, mobility for disabled and vulnerable users, alignment with transport planning and development objectives, and better use of digital and emerging transport technologies. The overall strategy will be delivered progressively over a 10-year period. Section 7 goes into a wee bit of detail about the strategy. Went through quite extensive engagement with residents, elected members, operators, business groups and wider stakeholders, and that feedback has shaped the final priorities and actions within the strategy. Employee implications, obviously going forward with a 10-year strategy, there's quite a lot of unknowns there, but what is clear is we will require staff with specialist skills in planning, modelling, engineering, engagement and digital technologies. The financial implications are obviously pretty kind of important in this strategy as well. Whilst we've got lots of ambition, policy and actions, that can only be delivered through an appropriate level of investment and funding and commitment from partners, both locally and nationally across Scotland. Some of these initiatives and projects will be phased over several years to match available investment. In terms of climate change, obviously the strategy supports directly net zero goals, improvements in air quality and encourages sustainable mobility and promotes climate resilience as well. So turning back to the recommendations, the committee is asked to approve them. The context of the report be noted, that the Local Transport Strategy 2026 to 2036 be approved, and approval will be granted to the Executive Director of Community and Enterprise Resources to make any minor amendments during the final publication stages of the process. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Colin. In terms of questions, Councillor David Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'd like to welcome this report. It's very good to see a high-level strategy. But my question would be, will we have other reports as this strategy goes from theoretical into practice? And obviously, there's restrictions on that finance-wise, and we have to work with partners. But I'm keen to see the good ideas within this strategy transformed into action on the ground. So can we have any idea of a timescale for these things to come about? Thank you, Chair.
I think there's 2 points there, timescale, but also reporting back and monitoring, isn't there, Colin?
Yeah,
Thanks, Chair, and Councillor Shearer for your question as well. So essentially the way the strategy's worked in previous years, and I see no different now, every year we have our service action plans, our resource and our service action plans, and that sets out the detail. Those are set when we know our council budget, we know partners' budgets as well, and through that report and through a whole range of committees, including risk and scrutiny, there's an opportunity for members to see progress and challenge progress. The paper does talk about a mid-year review, a mid-term review as well, so I would probably be bringing a fuller report with all of the actions, which is probably just a collection of the previous 4 years' action plans through the service action plan as well to a committee as well. If there's any particular projects, they'll be reported by other means. So if we're taking forward a major project like Hare Myers or the Metro or something like that, there'll obviously be papers coming forward on their own. So annually, there'll be reports through the service action plan reporting.
This will go into Connect as well, won't it? Into the council's own plan.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Okay. Kirsten, Rob.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin, for the strategy and all the work that's gone on into it. Just a few questions, just to make a point that South Lanarkshire Transport is the largest contributor towards climate changing emissions in South Lanarkshire, so it's really important that we really get concrete action and measuring progress towards achieving all the aims that the transport strategy seeks to achieve. I know the administration has an aim of reducing by 10% the number of children travelling to school by car, so I think that recent statistics showed that's going backwards, so I'm just seeing how this strategy will really ratchet up that action, and I had a few ideas that could add and help in the process as well. On page 59 and 71, it mentions cycle parking in key locations, but particularly in flatted areas, it's really important that residents have opportunities to park their bikes safely without cluttering up closes and so on. And I just wondered if the council's committed to producing at a strategic level a strategic approach to bike parking in residential areas. I've got some more questions. Do you want them all in a oneer, or?
Yes, just put them all in once, yes.
Yep, okay. On page 65, it explains how investment is driven by the Roads Asset Management Plan. I wanted to check that cycleways are now included in the Roads Asset Management Plan so that maintenance on those can be picked up as part of an investment in an asset. The third one is 71, mentions the importance of cycle training, mentioning bikeability, but training to teach younger ones to actually cycle, because bikeability only picks up once you can cycle. What is the council doing to assist or work in partnership so that younger children can learn in the early years or through SLLC or other partners as well? And just the fourth point really is about the value of partnership working. There's a huge council tends to work heavily on the capital side, which is really important, getting the infrastructure in place, but there's so much can be achieved by partnership working and other organisations that can bring in funding as well. And how do the council plan to do that with this strategy at an early enough and coordinated stage to maximise that partnership working?
Colin, back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and Councillor Rob for your questions. We'll take the last one first. Partnership working is key. We're not going to deliver any of the actions or policies within this without working with others, whether that be SBT, Scottish Government, as you know, via the Council Cycle Partnership as well. There's a whole range of partners on there as well. So we do engage, we do work with as many people who want to work with us to take these forward. Obviously, one of the barriers is resource, both employee and financial as well. So I think the important thing here is we now have a strategy that's probably a bit more fit for purpose. You know, the one even in 2023, where we were middle of the way through COVID there, was probably already out of date. So I think we've got now a framework to work with partners, to bid for joint projects and to deliver on some of them, because it's clear this is a strategy for South Lanarkshire. It's not my strategy, it's for everybody. So it's working with partners, working with community planning partnerships, working with voluntary groups as well. In terms of cycle training for those who to learn to cycle, I don't know. Actually, I need to look into that. We're obviously very big in what we do in terms of bikeability, road safety, working with children, young children as well. But that early ages, I'll need to look into that one and maybe work with colleagues in education as well. No current plans to come up with bike parking strategies within residential areas. At this moment in time, our focus has been on, kind of busier areas, town centres, schools, so put in bike shelters in those areas as well. Certainly through our development management process, working with Fraser's team, we can look to encourage new developments to include sustainable travel infrastructure, whatever that may be, whether that be EV charging units, whether it be cycle routes, cycle lanes, cycling infrastructure. But no current plans to do that, but it's not to say as the strategy evolves, we can't expand upon that one. In terms of the roads asset management plan, it does cover the whole range of infrastructure that we have, and it does carriageways, footways, bridges, structures, the whole kind of gamut there, including cycle lanes as well. Clearly, with the resources that we've got, we need to balance up where that's invested, and it does obviously have a large focus on carriageways and footpaths and bridges. And we do inspect and we do tackle the cycling network as well, but on a balanced basis in terms of the kind of risk that's associated with it. Thanks.
Could I follow up on a couple of things there? The cycle hire thing was mentioned, and there's been some, I think, an aspiration for some time, which is Nita's mentioned there, to link into the Glasgow City arrangements for that. I'm given to understand this has now kind of been outsourced commercially, and it's a slightly different ballgame than it was before. Can we kind of check into that and get a sort of update on where we're at on that particular one?
We can, Chair. We've certainly looked into it over the years in relation to how commercially viable it is in South Lanarkshire. And essentially, if anything, possibly in and around the Rutherland Cambuslang area, but even then it was pretty marginal. So I'm sure there's a policy within, or an action within the local transport strategy for us to engage and just look at opportunities there, so we can certainly pick that one up with colleagues in Glasgow.
Okay, thank you. Just by way of observation as well, I think it's worth commenting that something like 10 times as many people walk and pedestrians as go on cycles. So it should be a pretty important aspect in all of this, I think, to be looking at the facilities for pedestrians, which is why we did the safe route stuff, and the underpasses and things have been added to that as well. Councillor Barker, Rolf.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that report, Colin, and again for Councillor Robb's observations. That transport is Scotland's biggest source of climate changing emissions, and more has to be done. We have the policies in South Lanarkshire, and I would just hope that there is more support from government when it comes to both keeping up bus services. We're losing some bus services, more passenger train services, and although our rail network is all actually electrified, some of those lines don't have enough power installed, and rail operators are still having to run diesel trains through Lanarkshire because of that. So thanks again.
Okay, thank you very much. And just the final point, just on the one that Kirsten raised about the travel to school thing, which I think is actually quite important. We have done, obviously, some of the cul-de-sac orders and things like that. I think I'm right in saying that some of this is goes routinely to the Road Safety Forum, does it not? Some reports on that. Maybe it's worthwhile having an update on the travel to school thing in particular, and let them have a closer look at that.
Yes, certainly, Chair. There's obviously quite a lot of reporting done via the Road Safety Forum on how we're engaging with schools, how we're making the environment in and around schools safer. I'm not entirely sure what the next Road Safety Forum date is, but it's I'm looking over across at Councillor McLachlan, he doesn't know either. So we'll certainly we can share those reports as well. And I think there's lots of good reports go to the Cycling Partnership, go to the Road Safety Forum, but I think perhaps we maybe need to elevate them, a few of them, maybe bring them to this committee at some point, just to give maybe greater visibility.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With no further questions, can I move that report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That report's approved. Item 9, the review of the management of trees, page 77 to 84. Kirsty Maguire is going to speak to this report. Kirsty.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone else. This report that's been presented is the first step towards addressing the Council motion of the 10th of December 2025, which sought a review of tree management in South Lanarkshire. Section 4 of the report provides high-level information on the extent of tree assets within the Council area. Relevant policies and legislation are summarised at Section 5, with more detail provided in Appendix 1 of the report. The Council's current approach to tree management is set out in Section 6, with an emphasis on the steps already taken to move towards a more planned, proactive way of working, which includes using nature restoration funding to develop 12 urban woodland management plans. More detail on the progress made to date can be found in Appendix 2. In terms of next steps, 3 are proposed in Section 7 of the report. 1, that the team will undertake a review of tree management over the next 18 months and provide a follow-up report to this committee thereafter. 2, that the team will also develop a tree canopy strategy, which will set out the Council's priorities and objectives for trees and woodlands over the next 10 years. And lastly, that a review of the recommendations from the urban woodland management plans referred to in the report will be used to identify a long-term programme of work as well as potential funding opportunities. There are no financial or employee implications associated with the report at this time. And if I can now return to Section 2 and ask the committee to approve the following recommendations.
Thanks very much.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yes. Any questions on that report? No questions. Can I therefore move the report? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, the appointment of the public analyst and food examiner, pages 85 to 88. Fraser Collins is going to speak to that report. I think it's a relatively formal report, isn't it? Fraser.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is looking to appoint a suitably qualified person to act on behalf of the Council as a food examiner and public analyst. Section 3 sets out the role, which is delivered within the context of an existing contract. No policy or financial implication for the appointment, and members are asked to approve the recommendation in paragraph 2.1.
No questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That report's approved. Item 11, items for noting. Enabling Commercial Space Programme. Again, we're familiar with this one. Project update, pages 89 to 94. Alison Brown is going to speak to that report.
Thank you. This report provides an update on the South Lanarkshire's contribution to Glasgow City Region's Enabling Commercial Space Programme. In February 2024, Glasgow City Region Cabinet has sought to select new regional priorities. Following an expression of interest, the Enabling Commercial Space Programme was selected as it spreads delivery across all 8 local authorities and addresses the region-wide shortage of modern and industrial space. The Council was awarded just over £11 million for 3 priority projects, which were Red Tree Labs, Industrial Unit Upgrade and Retrofit, and Cathcart Road Industrial Units. Progress to date is set out in Section 4. In respect of Red Tree Labs, this flexible lab and office facility is in the final stages of design, with construction programmed for early 2027. Due to an increased specification, a larger building and inflation costs are now estimated at over £22 million. A cocktail of funding has been sought and is in the pipeline. However, the Council's allocation of £9 million remains unchanged. Work is underway with colleagues in Housing and Technical Resources to identify suitable industrial premises for a retrofit project, and this aligns with the Supporting Development Local Business Investment approved as part of the 26-27 budget. And finally, and as has previously been reported to committee, the Council is delivering 2 net zero industrial units at Cathcart Road in Rutherglen. Due to the project securing regeneration capital grant funding, the project no longer requires just over £1.1 million of Glasgow City Region allocation. It's proposed that this funding is reallocated to other industrial development projects, again aligned with the budget commitments. As projects develop, full business cases will be presented to committee in due course. And turning back to the recommendations, committee is asked to note progress in the delivery of the Enabling Commercial Space Programme.
Thank you very much. And again, by way of transparency, I should say that I'm a director of Clyde Gateway as a council appointee. That is a report for noting. Any questions on that report? No questions. Can I move the report?
Second it.
That report's approved. Moving on to item 12, Clyde Wind Farm South Lanarkshire Net Zero Community Grant Fund, pages 95 to 98. Back to Alison Brown again.
Thank you. This report outlines the creation and formal launch of a new 3-year £450,000 net zero community fund for South Lanarkshire. The fund is financed through SSE, Clyde Wind Farm Development Fund, and supports community-led climate action across the area. The key objectives are set out in paragraph 3.3, including developing local supply chains, improve and develop renewable energy, recycling and environmental sustainable industries and businesses, and support for education and employability. Grants will be on a competitive basis, ranging from £5,000 to £20,000, which would be eligible for 100% grant award. Larger grants of over £20,000 would be capped at 70% of the project costs. The awards are open to not-for-profit constituted community organisations across South Lanarkshire. Potential eligible projects are set out in paragraph 4.3, including energy efficiency measures, renewable energy installations and improving air quality. Community groups will be able to apply through the existing GrantVisor Community Grants portal, and as is the case with REF grants of less than £20,000 will be approved under delegated authority, with grants above this threshold coming to this committee for consideration and approval. It's intended for the launch to take place in summer this year. And returning to the recommendation, committee is asked to note the plans for the Clyde Wind Farm Community Grant Fund.
Thanks very much. No questions, I don't think. Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
That report's approved. Item 13, Douglas Valley Community-Led Outdoor Recreation Adventure Tourism Project, pages 99 to 104. Sarah O'Sullivan is going to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide committee with an overview of the Douglas Valley Community-Led Outdoor Recreation and Adventure Tourism Project and to provide an update on progress and next steps. Under section 3, in the background, you'll see that the Douglas Valley Advisory Group, DVAG, represents the 6 communities surrounding the Hagshaw Energy Cluster of Coburn, Douglas, Glespin, Lesmahago, Muirkirk, Rigside and Douglas Water. DVAG advises the Council on the investment of funds that further the delivery of key priorities as outlined in the Hagshaw Energy Cluster Development Framework. The Outdoor Recreation and Adventure Tourism Project to support the health and wellbeing theme is the first to be progressed by the Council on behalf of DVAG. Under section 4, progress to date, you'll see that the project sets out the context for phased development of proposals with an estimated capital cost of around £14.5 million over the next 10 to 15 years, with construction activity supporting the regional and national economy. Split into 26 key developments, the project is anticipated to be largely delivered by local community organisations, utilising regional and national grant funding sources and matched with community benefit funds, including the Renewable Energy Fund. Comprehensive consultation has played a key role in shaping these proposals to date. Section 5 outlines the next steps. Delivery of proposals is presented as a three-phase process over phase 1, 2 and 3, with a variety of delivery partners identified. Phase 1 includes Douglas Dale Community Woodland Hub and Workshop Building, Douglas West Temporary Visitor Centres and Facilities and Car Park, active travel connection from Peniel to Douglas West, branding and signage strategy, local visitor infrastructure enhancement in and around Coburn, Dalwandi recreational enhancements and Coburn connections, online map of recreational walking and cycling routes. So coming back to the recommendations, the committee is asked to approve the following: that the progress being made to deliver the Douglas Valley Outdoor Recreation and Adventure Tourism Project be noted.
Thanks very much. Ross Gowland.
Yeah, excuse me. Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to welcome the update. I've met with Sarah about the progress. I know community representatives have fed back over time. So 14.5 million over 10 to 15 years is ambitious, and as is a target of 100,000 visitors, which is really ambitious to see, and it's really good to see the strategy and the money going into my ward and wider. But yeah, looking forward to see the updates, some more work to be completed on the projects. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. No further questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
That report's approved. Item 14 is the Clydesdale Way project update, pages 105 to 110. Alison Brown is going to speak to that one.
The Clydesdale Way is a major rural path and active travel project funded through UK Levelling Up Fund as part of the Three Rivers Active Tourism Project, jointly delivered with Scottish Borders Council and Dumfries and Galloway Council. South Lanarkshire's project allocation is 6.795 million, with a match funding from the council of 755,000, giving a total value of 7.55 million. The project will create 132 kilometres of walking and cycling routes in the rural area from Bonington Lynn, north of Lanark, through Biggar, Coulter, Abington, Crawford, Elvenfoot, Lead Hills, and ultimately joining the southern upland way at Wanlock Head. The route combines existing paths, unclassified roads, and new sections of bound and unbound paths. It is divided into 22 sections and requires agreement with over 100 landowners. Progress to date includes stakeholder and community consultation, landowner engagement, ecological surveys and accessibility audits, as well as design work, and branding and signage development has also been commissioned. Following lengthy discussions with landowners, it has been identified that landowner agreements will not be forthcoming for several sections as set out in paragraph 8.2, and that alternative routes will be identified where possible. Next steps and timeline is set out in section 9, which highlights further community consultation to take place this spring, with a site start anticipated for initial sections in autumn-winter this year. Turning back to the recommendation, committee is asked to note progress with the delivery of the Clydesdale Way project.
Thank you very much. And I think that's the fourth report that relates to investment of one sort or another in the rural hinterland of South Lanarkshire, of quite a substantial amount. So any questions on that particular matter? No questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much indeed. That report's approved. Item 15, Business Gateway Lanarkshire 25-26 Interim Performance Report, pages 111 to 120. Ian Ross is going to speak to that report.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. As the report says, it's an interim report that members requested be brought to committee after the annual report was brought in the autumn, and it also supplements the members' briefing session that was held in mid-January, which I know a number of members were able to attend that session with colleagues from the Business Gateway Service. So the report is intended to provide an overview of the activities and performance achieved to the end of the Quarter 3 in 2025-26 year by Business Gateway. Section 3 sets out the background and the structure of the service, with moving into Section 4, touching on the way in which inquiries come to the service, and then moving into performance of the year to date. So Section 4.3 touches on a bit of an overview in terms of the new starts and existing businesses and the percentages of interventions against targets to date. And whilst there's still a piece of work to be done in the final quarter, we're close to where we want to be at this point in the year, and hope that we will achieve the overall targets by the end of the year. Section 4.6 just highlights some of the problems facing the SME business base across Scotland and within South Lanarkshire, and it lists a number of particular challenges through those bullet points, which again members will be familiar with running through those. And again, as you'll imagine, since this report was written, that last bullet point touching on energy and petroleum supplies, it touches on Grangemouth, but obviously the challenges in the Middle East are causing a number of macroeconomic influences that no one had anticipated, and will put additional pressure on businesses. In terms of Section 4.8, business startups, again, the landscape there is challenging. There is a nervousness by a number of people who may look to consider self-employment as a route, with the wider macroeconomic dynamics. They are perhaps pausing for breath, although having said that, there are a number of very exciting entrepreneurial aspects to the economy at the moment, not least the Shark Reef initiative that the the council run with partners and was very successful last year and is in the process of being set up for the year ahead. Section 414 touches on the existing business services with similar macroeconomic and local economic challenges that are being faced. And at 416 it notes that there have been a decline in some of the inquiry from businesses which directly affects the ability to categorise customers as either local priority or business basis. So the local priority numbers are not quite where we want, but again, moving into the new financial year, we will review what's within those local priorities and move them forward. Section 419, moving forward, just looks at some of the ways in which the team are looking to address those challenges. And looking at how we can turn some of these dynamics around. And section 422 moves into the expert help programme, which we deliver jointly with colleagues in North through the Business Gateway, of which the uptake has been very promising and which has led to a number of great success stories within the business base, particularly in East Kilbride business that's gone on to land very big contracts with the Scottish Government following the support of the expert help programme. Section 425 just sets out the quality assurance processes that the Business Gateway have in place, so anonymous online feedback from customers, and then moving into the events and programmes to support the engagement with businesses all across Lanarkshire, with a real intention of getting into all parts of the communities. And you'll see at 431 some of the locations across South Lanarkshire in which these events have been held, just trying to make sure that there is a good cross-section across all parts of the business community. Section 5 moves into marketing and the way in which the Business Gateway team promote themselves. And again, I'm sure you'll be familiar with various radio and other advertisements, partly led by Lanarkshire team, but by the national team as well. And section 6 looks at the key priorities of the team moving into the new financial year. I think probably, hopefully to give members some comfort, the paper Colin touched on at the start around the budget, the increased level of grants that are available to the team moving into the new financial year, we hope will have a dramatic effect in terms of engagement and support the local economy. And that's both across the existing grant structure, but also the retrofit grants that will support businesses. And the figures in the report touch on up to Q3, but we obviously are able to access these figures on a monthly basis. And since the report was drafted, we have had an insight to the Q4 to date. There's obviously still a month to go, but the figures are looking positive, and we are at or above 90% in many cases, and at 100 and in one case 120%. So the outlook is looking promising in terms of hitting those year ends and moving into the new financial year. So with that, I take members back to the recommendations at section 2 and ask that the service being delivered and the performance to date be noted. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Ian. Any questions on that report? Don't see any. Can I therefore move the report?
Seconded.
That report's approved. Item 16, flood risk management in South Lanarkshire, pages 121 to 134. Colin Park's going to speak to that report. Colin.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide assurance that the Council is delivering its duties under flood legislation and to summarise current and emerging risks. A bit of background at section 3. Flooding in South Lanarkshire is very generally localised and it's often linked to surface water or drainage limitations rather than major river events. That said, climate change is increasing rainfall intensity with more frequent disruptions affecting roads, underpasses and low-lying areas. Section 4 sets out the various acts and it explains the Council's duties, which include assessing and maintaining water courses, reducing overall flood risk, preparing local flood risk management plans, acting where flood risk threatens or health or safety, and to enter land to undertake necessary works. These duties underpin a programme of inspections, clearance and emergency response. Section 5 just touches upon the National Flood Risk Assessment, and that identifies a number of properties in South Lanarkshire that are considered at risk of flooding during a 1 in 200 year flood event. And just members should note that a national assessment is due in 2026, which may update these figures and guide future planning. Section 6 goes into a little bit of detail on local flood risk management plans. The Council contributes to the Clyde and Loch Lomond and Tweed plan districts, and we've completed recent studies for areas such as Straven, Biggar, Cooter and East Kilbride. Surface water management plans have identified a series of recommended mitigation measures for future prioritisation. Section 7 just touches upon the National Flood Resilience Strategy, noting that the new national approach calls for improved community resilience, data and modelling, adaptation planning and land management practices, and members should note that our existing work already aligns quite strongly with these principles. Another reason for bringing this paper to committee was a report by Audit Scotland recently, back in August 25, and that audit reported that, highlighted that rising flood risk nationally, the need for clearer leadership, a long-term funding model for flood schemes, and just notes the skill shortage and data gaps across the whole kind of flooding world. And we are continuing to work with Scottish Government, both directly and via various flood groups, including Scots, to take forward those recommendations. Section 9 just highlights what we are doing in terms of our own response, and you'll see at section 9.1 various bullets here highlighting quite a strong response to what we do. These include scheduled watercourse inspections, clearing and repairing of drainage assets, telemetry monitoring at 20 priority sites, emergency call-out arrangements during major weather events, and working with colleagues in planning to ensure new development does not cause or increase flood risk. And I'm pretty sure that these measures, all above, have reduced the likelihood and impact of disruptive events over the years. Section 10 just talks in summary and in conclusions. The Council is very proactive in its approach, using a combination of maintenance, modelling, asset upgrades, planning controls and technology to protect our communities and infrastructure. Under employee implications, just worth to note that flooding events are clearly becoming more frequent, which may require future increases in inspection and response capacity, obviously in terms financial investments as well. Whilst no new financial commitments are requested at the time of writing in this paper, members have wrote from an earlier paper some increased investment in these areas, which should go some way for us to tackle some of our hot spots and around our major towns and villages and key corridors. Climate change and environmental implications. Climate change continues to intensify local flood events, obviously making ongoing mitigation essential. Integrated impact assessments, there's none required for this, as this is an update report with no new policy proposals coming forward. So members have just been asked to note the contents of this report, and I'll take any questions, Chair.
Thanks very much, Colin. I think a very helpful report. I was particularly interested in the stuff at 9.1 about the telemetry, if that's the right word, equipment, in terms of the ability to use IT to spot and predict, you know, where things were going funny. Could I ask us perhaps a silly question? At 5.1 and 2, there's the two reports from 2011, 2018 of the various risk areas, if you like. Are they in any kind of order, or is that just, the order seems to have varied? I wonder if there's any significance in that. At 5.1 and 2, you've got the White Cart, Rotherland, East of Glasgow, etc., the first one, and then it's a different order for the second one. Is that just incidental, or is there a... No, there's no priority list. No, no. Okay.
Sorry, Colin, can you press your button,
please?
Yeah.
I think that's just the order of the report. You'll possibly find other reports come in and other locations come in across the whole kind of Glasgow area. So
yeah.
If it's not that, I'll come back to you separately. Okay. Cheers. What I should have said as well is, as you're aware, obviously took you through this a couple of weeks back. So as we move into the spring summer, I'm looking at doing an online kind of workshop for members. If you just want to come along, we'll dive into this a wee. Sorry, pardon that pun. We'll look into this a wee bit more in detail. And if you have any questions about your own area, we can have a chat with my team who are a wee bit more informed in this. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? No questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That report's approved. Item 17, active travel schemes in South Lanarkshire, pages 135 to 148, and back to Colin again to speak to that report.
So you can just, yep, thanks.
You'd have thought in the fourth report I'd have got it right. So thank you again, Chair. The purpose of this report is to summarise recent improvements to walking, wheeling and cycling infrastructure and present monitoring data showing how these facilities have been used. The background is set out in Section 3. As members will know, active travel supports our wider transport, climate and health objectives and clearly embedded in our local transport strategy, which you approved earlier today. In October 25, the full Council passed a motion declaring a climate emergency, and that motion referred to the serious and immediate threat of climate change and the need to accelerate the pace of delivering action. A report to the Executive Committee or Community Enterprise was requested as part of the final motion agreed, and that was to provide an update on active travel, and this report today sets that out. Background also covers the various funding packages that we get. So the Council has completed active travel studies for all our major settlements, identifying priority corridors for investment, and this has all been informed by community engagement. Largely our active travel priorities are funded by active travel infrastructure funds, which comes from the Scottish Government. So Tier 1 is allocated directly to councils and Tier 2 as competitive bids. And we have submitted 11 bids for 26-27 and they're set out in Appendix 1 of the report. The funding for Tier 1 just recently been confirmed and we're currently working up priorities in that areas. Section 4 just talks about some of the implemented schemes that we've already done over the years. So members will may be aware of quite significant investment in East Kilbride Town Centre. We've got an active travel loop, links to Calderglen, between Calderglen and the town centre, improvements to Carstairs to Carluke, improvements in the national cycle route in and around Newton, Carmyle and Lark Hall, a significant investment in safer crossings and token upgrades across the patch, school cycling park and expansion, as Councillor Rob noted earlier on. And that's all seen us remove some barriers on some of our off-road routes as well to encourage cycling, overall increasing safety, accessibility and route continuity. Projects that are ongoing as we speak is the completion of the Calderglen section, some active travel links being completed this year and around Hairmyres rail station, further upgrade works in Stuartfield Way, some work at the A70 junction down in Clydesdale, some work commencing hopefully this week in relation to Stonelaw Road in relation to safer routes and further improvements to the national cycle network. Section 5 sets out a whole range of benefits and monitoring and evaluation that we do. They're all set out. Monitoring through our counters, surveys and digital data shows high level of cycling on key corridors such as Rutherglen and through Hamilton, strong use of upgraded junctions with clear and known safety benefits. Kind of growth has kind of stabilised post-pandemic, which initially the pandemic saw a significant increase, but it kind of has settled down a little, but we are seeing some significant growth still on some longer rural routes, and positive feedback recently from young people and community cycle groups in and around East Kilbride in terms of the investment that we've introduced. Summary, this programme demonstrates steady progress in relation to the investment in active travel infrastructure, which I want to stress is more than just cycling. Active travel infrastructure is a bit of everything. It's walking, it's cycling, it's pedestrian crossing, it's improved lighting, it's drainage. It's a whole range of areas, and we do try and take the fund that's available to not only deliver new infrastructure, but deliver on our kind of maintenance priorities as well. And we essentially try and get a wee bit more bang for our buck, as they say. Any future expansion falling out of the active travel studies will require successful funding bids and continued partnership working. Under employee implications, obviously we're going to need ongoing resource there, and we're also going to need ongoing resource in relation to finances as well. So just turning back to the recommendations, members are asked to note the content of the report.
Thanks very much. That's quite a useful report, I think, on where we're at on this kind of stuff. Any questions? Ralph Barker. Ralph.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for that report, Colin. Just looking for an assurance, there will always be good community consultation on these schemes. That will normally be done rather than just people wake up and find that the layout's changed. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Barker. I think the kind of beauty of where we are just now is for all our towns and villages, we've done that consultation initially. So we've spoken to communities and we've asked, you know, where the priorities are, where are people trying to get to and from, where the missing links are, where the gaps are. And that's built up over the years. So we have a whole range of active travel studies, and clearly as we bring things forward, We can't keep everybody happy. We will have conversations with local members, community groups as we bring forward projects on the ground. But in terms of principles of what people are looking for, that framework's already kind of been set out as part of those active travel studies. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, no further questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
That report's approved. Item 18, Bereavement Services Update, pages 149 to 154. Ellen Miller is going to speak to that report. Ellen.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon all. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on legislative changes impacting on bereavement services, update members on the bereavement services strategy, which was approved by the Executive Committee at its meeting held on the 26th of June 2024. The recommendations are the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the legislative changes within the Bereavement and Cremation Scotland 2016 Act and the Burial Management Scotland Regulations 2025 outlined in section 4 of the report be noted, and that the progress of the bereavement services strategy outlined in section 5 of the report be noted. Section 3 covers the background. South Lanarkshire Council operates a bereavement service that provides a dignified and sensitive burial and cremation service. The key piece of legislation governing the service is the Burial and Cremation Scotland Act 2016, which was passed by the Scottish Parliament on the 22nd of March 2016 and received royal assent on the 28th of April 2016. The 2016 Act fulfils the commitment of the Scottish Government to implement the recommendations made by the Burial and Cremation Review Group 2007, the Infant Cremation Commission 2014 and the National Cremation Investigation of 2016. Further updates to the regulations were announced on the 4th of February 2026, with the Burial and Cremation Applications and Registers Miscellaneous Amendment Scotland Regulations 2025 will come into force on the 2nd of March 2026. The regulations amend the Cremation Scotland Regulations 2019 and the Burial Applications and Register Scotland Regulations 2024. Section 4 covers the key points from the Burial and Cremation Scotland 2016 Act and the Burial Management Scotland Regulations 2025. Sections 14 and 16 of the 2016 Act address the duration of burial rights and will come into force on the 1st of March 2026. These have wide-ranging implications for the residents who purchase layers from this point onwards, as well as implications on how the Council manages layers across cemeteries in South Lanarkshire. The new legislation will now mean that any new right of burial granted will no longer be held in perpetuity by the right holder. Instead, it will be held for an initial period of 25 years. Following this period, the right of burial can be extended for an additional 10 years, and further extensions of 10-year periods can be requested thereafter. To ensure right holders are well informed, a notification will be sent to the contact address on the registers at least 3 months before the end of the burial right period. This notification will indicate the date on which the right is set to expire, inform the right holder of their option to apply for an extension, and clarify the right will be extinguished if no extension application is made. Should the right of burial be extinguished, the rights will revert to the local authority. If the right to burial is not extended, it is automatically extinguished. Where this happens with an unused layer, the burial authority may resell the right of burial in that layer. Where the layer is used or partially used, the layer can be considered for reuse under sections 32 to 44 of the 2016 Act, layer restoration to use, when those sections of the 2016 Act come into force. Moving on to section 5, a plan of action to reclaim burial ground where the right of burial was previously purchased but the rights have not been exercised has also been developed. The plan is being progressed in collaboration with colleagues in legal services and will include the considerations that are laid out in the report in section 5.4. In 5.6, in terms of modernising and transformation of the services, IT systems, significant investment has been made to transition to a new cloud-based IT system. This system will modernise processes within the service, improve resilience and eventually enhance the customer experience by establishing an integrated mapping system, allowing remote access to systems, digitising existing paper-based processes and work instructions, providing digital headstone inspection reports and reducing data risk and increasing resilience. So if I can just move back to section 2, which is the recommendations, that the committee is asked to approve that the legislative changes within the Burial and Cremation Scotland 2016 Act and the Burial Management Scotland Regulations 2025 outlined in section 4 of the report be noted, and that the progress of the bereavement services strategy outlined in section 5 of the report be also noted. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much. Ellen, in terms of questions, Susan Kerr.
Thanks. Thanks for that report. Just want to say it was quite fascinating, actually. I think I might need to read it another few times, right enough to get my head around the new legislation, etc. I'm not an expert in graveyards. I have spent a lot of my youth, and I still do, like walking around old graveyards. But, you know, yeah, it's going to take me a long time to get around that. You know, a few more readings, but fascinating, and the changes that we could see coming our way. Because when I first looked at the report, I do wonder, not wonder, but I was looking at to see what the other European countries do. You know, when you go visit places like Italy or France or Spain or whatever, you know, what they do for burials or, you know, cremations and, you know, what they do in other countries. I'm not an expert in that, but it's interesting. So that's I just wanted to say that. But really, what I really want to go back to here is it's been a hot topic of conversation in my ward, in the town of Straven, where I live, and every community council meeting recently over the past months that I've been to, it's brought up about the Straven Cemetery. And the fact that any time you're at the cemetery, everyone talks about it, including myself. There's no room, there's no spaces, it looks full. But I see here on page 150, on page 150, what am I looking at? Sorry, maybe that's the wrong page. Yes, it might well be. It mentions, wait a minute. I'm on the wrong page here. No, am I? No. Not that, not that. Oh, right, yeah, got it. 150, 5.3. Right, in Straven Cemetery, potentially 27 new layers have been identified within its existing boundaries. I'm up there all the time, basically, right? Don't ask why. No. It's just, I live quite close, it's a nice walk and what have you. And I see none of that. I'd love somebody to take me up and let me see, well, where are you seeing this? Because people do worry about it in Straven. When you've been born and brought up in Straven or lived there for most of your life, when you die, you know, sorry to be rogue about this, right, but they want to stay in Straven. Now, recently, what I've heard at the Community Council is, and been, you know, people are horrified by it because they're saying, well, they know that people recently have, because there's no room in the Straven Cemetery, have had to go to Hamilton. It's not the end of the world, right enough, right? But or Stonehouse, etc. You know, and people don't want to do that, and I get it. You know, I feel the same, to be honest. So that's my real point. I know that not everybody in here is interested in Straven Cemetery or wants to hear about this or go on about it. So I'd really want to pick this up at a later date with yourself, Kevin, or whoever's the most appropriate person to talk to about Straven for the future, for future cemetery, if for land or whatever, right? I know it's been talked about before and all the rest of it, but and I also know that I think your answer might be, well, cremations are more popular these days. That's the right word. But I still think there is, from what I hear about people, residents of Straven, people that live there, they are really scared about the fact that there's nowhere in Straven. And I was quite shocked to see it's only potentially 27. Straven's got a huge, much bigger population now, and there's more houses springing up everywhere all the time. So just that, sorry for rambling on. But
this has been discussed before with the cemetery strategy and things which came before this committee previously, but Kevin, give you a bit of context to this, please.
Sorry, Kevin. Try again. There you go. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Kerr. Yeah, cemetery capacity has been a bit of a hot topic in the time I've been here. 2 years ago, we developed and brought forward for consideration and approval a cemetery strategy followed by a bereavement strategy. And there was a few things in the strategy that it set out to achieve and things that we said we would do to address some concerns. So three things. So one was we're going to look at underused and underutilised space across all our cemeteries to see if there are spaces that we could recover for usage. And the good news is for Straven, as the report highlights, we think there are capacity for a further 27 layers within that footprint at the moment, which we will go ahead to recover over the coming months and make available to the public. The second thing that we said we were going to do is we would then try and recover the right of burial. Now, Ellen set out the changes in legislation that have come into force now, where that, instead of in perpetuity, it's every 25 years. But the previous legislation allowed us to recover burials or layers that hadn't been used after a certain time. And in the strategy, I think it was 60 years, I think we were going to go back. 60 years, Ellen's nodding her head. So layers that hadn't been used after were purchased 60 years ago, therefore unlikely to be used, we would undergo the legal process to try and recover those layers. So over the last 2 years, we've been through that process with legal colleagues, and we're probably at a point over the next few months that we'll be able to progress that, which will take at least 12 months. So there are some other layer capacity that hasn't been used within cemeteries that hopefully in a year's time that we'll have taken ownership of. And the third thing that the strategy approved was a catchment approach to capacity. So it was recognising the point that you've made, the direction of travel, you know, in bereavement sector is, you know, cremations are now becoming more popular than burials. Now, it's not going to happen anytime soon. It'll be over a longer period that we'll start to see that kind of separate quite substantially in it, of decisions for the crematorium that we'll have to make at some point, you know, over the medium to longer term. But what it set out for cemetery provision is that we would look at capacities within a local area rather than individual cemeteries. Again, we said we would review that every 5 years, so it's not set in stone. So we're due to do that again in 2028, I think that is. So we'll do that the year before that, and we will come back to committee with that 5-year review, looking at then the forward horizon for that. So it's not to say that extensions, we're ruling any of them out. You'll see from the paper that we've just completed Phillips Hill in the last year. But what it did say is, as a strategic approach, that we'd be looking in geographic areas rather than specific local cemetery capacity.
Okay, Ralph Barker. Ralph.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for that report, Alan. And you know, thanks for that very eloquent contribution from Councillor Kerr. So I could also say, compliment the valiant efforts to create more layers in existing cemeteries. But in the end, some of these cemeteries are going to become full, whatever happens. And now, from today, I take it there is not an absolute prohibition on extensions where they're practical. But certainly, certainly by the next strategy review, it must be possible to take cemeteries, you know, on their individual merits, where extensions are possible. And if we don't do this, then the strategy really is discriminatory against certain communities where they just happen to have cemeteries that are just about full. And it's also, you know, completely in conflict with our other environmental policies for active travel, and that if we say, oh, you've got to go to somewhere, you know, 10 miles away, just depending where you are, they're going to go in their cars rather than walking along to their local cemetery. So could we have an assurance that the possibility of extensions will be included in the strategy? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Barker. Yeah, just to reiterate, so the strategy's been approved and it didn't rule out extensions or new cemeteries. It just said we were taking a longer horizon on this and looking at a geographic basis. So that'll all become part of that process in its first review. And maybe the last point I maybe want to make about this, one of the reasons, or maybe the main reason that the government's changed the legislation around this is recognising that the country's running out of space for burials. So they're making sure that councils are in a better position to recover underused or unused space in layers.
Thanks very much. Can I just make the point this is a report for noting against the background of a couple of strategies that has been mentioned a few times on that. David Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. I might have misunderstood, and I hope I have. When we talk about recovering layers, most layers will take 3 bodies. And are we talking about recovering layers where there is Granny and Grandpa, but there's still room for a third body? And could we find situations where a stranger has been put in beside my relatives or your relatives? Because I think the public might take a dim view of that. So could I hope I've got it wrong. I hope I've misunderstood, but could somebody clear that up for me?
Ellen?
Thank you, Councillor. We understand this is obviously going to be slightly distasteful for some people in the new legislation. We will not be, when we're talking about recovering layers of older layers, we will not be using layers that currently have interments in the layer. The legislation, the new legislation, clearly sets out that we can do that. Once the regulations come into full force, the government will give regulations. That's for layers that are now under the 25-year period, not for existing layers. So before the 1st of March 2026, all layers were held in perpetuity. And when we're talking about the recovery plan that we've got in the previous strategies, that is for layers that have not been used at all, that have no burials in them. But the new legislation does lay out a procedure that any local authority can retrieve the right of burial where the rights are extinguished. But that is not a policy of South Lanarkshire Council just now. And it is a policy that we'll look at, and it will come to committee once those full regulations from the sections come into force. And that is... So sections 32 to 44, when they come into force, we can produce a policy on that. But rest assured, it's not something that we are currently have any plans to do. Although that's in the regulations, it doesn't mean to say that the South Lanarkshire Council has to follow that, but we will have a policy for it in future, but not current layers.
Okay, I hope that's a reasonable...
hope that makes sense.
Reasonable reassurance on that matter.
Thank you for that reassurance. Thank you.
Okay, Ralph, did you want to come back in?
Yes, please. Thanks, Chair. Just the comment that the Scottish Government thought we're perhaps running out of room for extending cemeteries. All we ask is it's taken on a case-by-case basis. There may be places where we are running out of room, but that certainly isn't the case at, for example, Custairs. We should look at each one individually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. No more questions. Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
Proved to be slightly more controversial than I anticipated. Moving on to item 19, urgent business. There's no urgent business. Item 20, exclusion of the press and public. This is regard to a later item. As the remaining item of business may involve the likely disclosure of exempt information in terms of paragraphs 6 and 9 of Part 1 of Schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Members are asked to agree that the press and public be excluded from the meeting for this item of business. Now, can I therefore advise members participating via Confero that they must be in a secure private location with no other people present in the room and where no one else can hear or view the proceedings. Can I ask the clerk to confirm there's no members of the press and public present, which I don't think there are, and that the live recording and live streaming has been stopped?